Everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us on this lovely, bright Thursday evening. We welcome everyone who is joining us on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube Live. As you might already be aware of, that these sessions are a public broadcast, so they are available on YouTube forever and ever. And you want to hear it again, just search with the name and with Sister Judy's name and with the title, and you will be able to, see the recording. All of you have control of your mic, so please keep them muted when the session is going on. And Sister Judy will open the floor for question and answers. That'll be the right opportunity to open your mic and ask questions. One last thing, we do have a Spanish translation available. If you like to prefer to hear the lecture in Spanish, you can just go at the bottom of your Zoom. You will see a globe-like sign. You click on it and you will see the options for the language for you to choose. So today's topic is spiritual perspective of death and dying. I think since COVID, this is one topic which is on everyone's mind. I don't think there is any family left worldwide which has been left untouched with the incident of death or dying. And all of us, you might have a lot of questions holding in our minds, a lot of thoughts, maybe pain in our heart. So I'm just going to go ahead and invite Sister Judy, so we have a lot more opportunity to even chit chat. Sister Judy, welcome.
Thank you, Anita. And hello, everyone who's decided to spend this lovely evening together. I'm going to change the topic just a little. I'd like us to think about this as on living and dying, because actually, I think that the things that we have to do to die well are the same things we have to do to live well. So if it's all right with you all, I'm going to modify it a little bit in that way. I'm fine with being interrupted whenever, although I'm not sure I'll have my eye on the chat all the time, but feel free. I see us as here in a conversation. So I just want to say, starting out, that like you, I have lost a lot of friends in the last year or so. And it's making me think a lot about death, and it's making me think a lot about life. And so tonight, let's think about both. So, life is the soul's big adventure. So the soul comes into a body, and for one thing, you get all different kinds of bodies. The soul doesn't really know when it lands what it's getting. So they come in different kinds, they come in different colors, they come in different sizes. And it's not really till you are grown up a bit that you notice the kind of one that you got, right? You notice it either because you get a lot of affirmation or people push back or whatever, and you become aware of the kind of body that you're in. You get a certain kind of family. And some people get loving and close families that do a lot of things together. Other people don't get those kinds of families. And some people don't even get a family. They kind of come in without a family and then have to find one. You don't know how long you're going to get. Some people get a big, long life. My teacher died at 104 last year, and I hung on to the last minute, wanting her to stay as long as possible. Sometimes you get a little short life, way shorter than it should have been. And that's what makes you think about quality of life, right? Because it's really the quality of the life, not the length of it. Of course, if you have someone you love very much, you want them to get a big, long one. But it's really the quality by which we assess life. And so here we are, we're in these bodies, and our friends who we love are in these bodies, and we do the best we can with life. We learn as we go, and if we're lucky, by the time we're ready to let go of the body, we know how to live. Doesn't seem fair, does it? It seems that we should somehow come in knowing how to live and get to do it the whole time. But I don't know about you, but I made so many mistakes as a young person. I look back and I just think, what a goof I was. And sometimes we make big mistakes, sometimes we make little mistakes, but I think what saves us is if we realize that we're learning as we go. So I think there are 4 understandings which help us to live and help us to die. And so I want to take up each one. And as I said, you should feel free to interrupt it at whatever point you'd like. So the first understanding is that I am a soul. And with that comes the understanding that I am a guest. So I am a guest in the body. I'm a guest everywhere. I'm a guest in the family. It seems a little odd, but if you think about it, when I think of myself as a guest, then a few things happen to the way I approach my life. So one aspect of being a guest is that you're pretty unattached, right? So if you go to an Airbnb, you're pretty unattached to everything in it. You're not going to leave with a lamp or a couch or anything, right? You're just going to go in, you're going to borrow the place for a weekend or a week, and then you're going to go. And it's the same thing with us. We come into these bodies, we come into these lives, and we live in them for a period of time, and then we go. So if we're able to manage this awareness, then we live unattached, or with as little attachment as we can manage. Now, this is really hard. I'm listing this out as if this is like going out to get a popsicle or something. Living unattached is really hard because we fall in love with everything, right? Our favorite ice cream, our favorite street, our favorite store, our favorite nephew or niece, our favorite pet. And it's not that we shouldn't love them. We should love them. We should love them to pieces. And we should try to remain unattached, which means we hold them lightly. We understand that we're not going to have them forever. So we hold them lightly. Precious. We think they're precious, but we hold them lightly. And if I'm a guest, I have this consciousness that I am a trustee for everything that I have. It's not really mine. I'm taking care of it for the time being. So I'm taking care of the body. I'm taking care of the furniture and the automobiles and the houses and the et cetera, but actually nothing is really mine because I'm on my way out at some point, right? So it's an aspect of the being unattached. I'm sort of in the consciousness that I'm a trustee for all of this. And if I am aware of myself as a guest, then I live with a lot of respect. Respect for the things I have, respect for the people around me, respect for the circumstances, because I understand that everyone else is also a guest. We're all traveling through this period of time, these experiences together. And we come together and we do certain things together and then we go. So this first understanding to get in the mind and in the heart is, I am a soul and I am a guest in this life. So what does this mean in terms of our living? Well, in terms of our living, I've kind of focused on that, where we live lightly, we live with regard, every moment is precious because I know I'm a guest. But what does it mean in dying? How do I die as a guest? So it's some of the same things. So if I'm going to leave the body, sometimes you get a little time to plan and do it with grace. And that's been the fortune of some of my friends who've left. Sometimes you don't get that opportunity. You have to go suddenly. It's like you're catching a train and it's just arrived and it's leaving right away. So in dying, you leave without attachment. You let go of the body, you let go of your friends, you have good wishes for everything that served you in the life. You hand it off, knowing you're a trustee. You put it in good hands as much as you can. And you have a lot of respect for the process. Okay, I'm about to leave. Have I attended to everything? Have I seen everyone? I have one friend who left in March, and she had been in silence for 3 years. And she had had many doctors working on her. And at the end, it was clear that it was time she was going to go, and everyone was gathered. The doctors were gathered, the ones she'd stayed with were gathered, everyone was gathered. They were all in meditation and they're waiting. And in fact, they sent out a message that she was gone. And then they sent out another message saying, oh, wait, we made a mistake. She's not gone. So the first message came at like 10:30 in the morning. And then they said, it appears she's waiting for someone. And in fact, in about 20 minutes, the last doctor, one that had been taking care of her for 3 years, showed up. She opened her eyes, gave a nod of respect, closed her eyes, and left. And then we got the next text saying, okay, now she really has gone. So there's a way, if you get that chance, a way you get to say goodbye and all of that, but you don't always get that chance. So you have to kind of live in that state of respect. So that's number one. I'm a soul and I'm a guest. The second understanding that I think really helps us is understanding how to be tolerant. This is not everybody's favorite virtue. I have to say, most people count this virtue down at the bottom. They think of it as enduring. But I'd like to propose to you that being tolerant really means that you have the ability to accommodate whatever happens to you. So someone who's tolerant has a subtle focus in their mind and in their heart that the most important thing is that I be contented, that I be happy, that I be at peace. And therefore, I'm going to tolerate things in such a way that my happiness and peace and contentment doesn't get disturbed. Now, again, this isn't so easy. I'm not giving you this quick list that you can hang up at 7:30 and say, well, that's good. Let me go be tolerant. Let me go be unattached. But I find that these things actually are at the heart of our being able to live with dignity and die with dignity. Because when we're intolerant, when everything upsets us, when the way that somebody talks or walks in a room or whatever upsets us, or when bad weather upsets us, or when a surprise something at work or an adverse circumstance of some sort upsets us, when we find ourselves pulled off all the time, then our living is joyless because we're always upset. about something. You know, this is especially something that plagues people who are very exact. You know, some people like things just a certain kind of way. They always put the toothbrush in a certain kind of place, and they always eat their food in a certain kind of way, and they always have their socks matching in a certain kind of way. Those kinds of us, those people who are like that, have more trouble with tolerance because they have a high value on order. And there may have been a time when we had a more ordered world, but the world you and I are living in is not very ordered. I mean, it's completely unpredictable. No day do you wake up and be able to anticipate what's in the paper or what's on the news or what comes in the door or what your friends say. It's a very volatile, fragile world. And so if we remain very fixed, if we remain very insisting that things have to come to us in a certain way, then we are going to be upset. The mind will not be at peace. The heart will be filled with anger and frustration. Everything will pull us off. And that affects our living and our dying. I mean, what we want is we want to live with grace. We want to live in such a way that no one can take away our happiness. And it's possible to live that way. It is completely possible to live with happiness in spite of what's going on around us if we cultivate this ability to be tolerant. It's a kind of flexing, right? A kind of easiness with life. Now, when people talk about dying, how they want to die, or how someone did die, how they left the body, it's always considered a great fortune if they left in peace, right? That's really what you want to hear. I mean, and when someone writes about someone passing, they say, you know, he was in the arms of someone he loved. He was holding the hands of someone he loved. He was at peace. He was surrounded by his family. Or sometimes they like to, you know, souls like to leave when no family's there. Sometimes the families wait and finally give up and go home to bed, and the soul leaves like this, right? Because it's easier to leave sometimes when those you love aren't there. But what you want, you know, if you have lived in a tolerant way, if you've lived with that accommodating ability, then when it comes time to go, you go in ease. You go with grace. It tends to be true that the way that we live is also the way that we exit, right? Death is the last act of life. And it's really, I mean, when we think about death, just to digress for a minute, what we're really talking about is the soul finishing the body. The soul's finished with that body. The part is finished. And sometimes it's illness and that kind of thing that finishes. Sometimes it's just the length of time that you've lived. You've gotten to a very old age. But basically, that part is finished and the body is finished. The soul just sheds the body and moves on. So when we talk about death, we're talking about how the soul does that. So first, I'm a soul, I'm a guest. The second understanding is how to be tolerant, how to live with tolerance. The third understanding is sort of two things together. And that's understanding how to forgive and how to apologize. You know, I don't know about you, but no matter how good my intentions are, no matter how well I try to conduct myself, I have made mistakes, sometimes big mistakes. And I have felt harmed also by others and their acts of unkindness or their mistakes or whatever. And these things, and we've talked about this before, those who've been on these evenings before, we carry these things, these memories of mistakes I made and mistakes someone else made. They can follow us for a really long time. And we can carry that sense of guilt or that sense of blame in our hearts. And when we do that, when we carry that sense of blame or guilt in our hearts, it really compromises the quality of our life. We can't live with lightness. We can't live with happiness if we live with this feeling that I have made a mistake that is so huge that I'm not ever going to be able to forgive myself or expect anyone else to forgive me. Or conversely, that someone has done something so harmful to me that I can never forgive them. Because when we carry that in our heart, it is like a bondage. It's a tether. It connects us to that person and to that memory. So we can't live lightly. Now, when you think about, the heart is one of those things that if you've ever had your heart broken, you know right where it is, right? And I'm talking about the heart of the soul here, not your cardiovascular system. Sorrow or disappointment or those kinds of things really land in the heart very heavy. And missing, when we lose someone, when they leave us, the end of their life, but it's not the end of the time we wanted with them, then the missing that we have for them is also in the heart, right? There's a lot that goes on in the heart. And so part of keeping our heart clear, as I said, is tolerance, but part of keeping our heart clear is knowing how to apologize and knowing how to forgive. And so what do we do when we're going to apologize? And I'm not saying you have to go apologize to anybody else. You just have to apologize in your own heart because you're the one who's probably holding yourself to task the most. So you have to be able, on an apology, you have to be able to say in your heart, I am so sorry. I know I made this mistake. And I didn't intend to make this mistake. But I did make the mistake, and I know it caused harm to someone else or something else. And for the freedom and lightness of my own heart, I apologize and I forgive myself completely, and I hope the other will forgive me as well. And I free myself from any further burden from this. And with forgiveness, it's the same. So if someone did something that harmed us and we've been carrying it around in the heart, we can either pull that person in front of us in our mind, or we can just hold them in the heart. And we say, at the time you did this, you must have thought this was what you had to do. And maybe you didn't intend to cause any harm. But I took sorrow from that. And now, for the lightness of my heart, I want to release that sorrow. And I forgive you completely for what you did. And I release you from any further responsibility for that. And then you really let it go. So what does this mean for our living? You know, to live without guilt and to live without blame is to live in joy. You know, to be able to say, all right, life gives you good things, life gives you bad things, but I'm not going to carry these things in my heart. So this brings us a kind of lightness, a kind of joy, a kind of being in the present, a kind of, would you say, like a rapport with life, a rapport with other people. It makes you soft in nice ways. And when you die, when it comes to the time the soul's going to exit the body, the soul wants to be as light as possible. The soul doesn't want to be carrying things with it when it goes. Because the thing is, the soul will take another body, and these things, if you don't clear them, they travel with you. When the soul takes a new body, it's not a conscious awareness, but it's a subtle, you might say it's a subtle pattern in the soul, a subtle sorrow in the soul. The soul can carry sorrow into another birth. The soul can carry anger into another birth. And we don't want to do that, right? We want to travel lightly. So you want to get anything like that that's going to feel like a burden, anything that's going to compromise your happiness. You want to clear that before you go. So the understanding how to forgive and how to apologize. That's what lets us live in lightness, and it lets us die with grace. Then the fourth understanding is understanding how to be spiritually loving. Now, what is spiritual love? Isn't love just love? I mean, I love my friend, I love my dog, I love my car, I love my mother, I love. So there are differences in the way we love. Spiritual love is the original nature of the soul. All souls are loving in their original state. And the parent of souls, God or the Supreme Soul or the Source or whatever you call that one, is love, is an ocean of love. So this is our nature. But what has happened to us as we've gone through our life, or we've gone through our lives, and we've had disappointments, or people have treated us badly, or our hearts got broken, or some adverse thing happened that took our happiness away. When that happens, then we can become protective of ourselves. And we can stop being naturally loving. Or we can choose to love certain things and not love other things. So I love this one, but I don't love this one. That kind of love where you only love certain things, you only love certain people, is not spiritual love. Because spiritual love doesn't have much to do with the object of the love. We're spiritually loving naturally. So if someone behaves badly, we still love them. In fact, we may love them more. They may need more love. If someone's behaving really badly, they probably need a lot of love, which is the counterintuitive, right? Usually we love the things that are lovable. We love puppies, we love children, we love pretty days. We don't love snowstorms. We don't love people who are rude and mean, people who are selfish. We don't love them, right? So that it's not supposed to work that way, because those souls, those non-lovable looking entities, all they're needing is our love in order to get back to who they really are. So our ability to be truly, completely, altruistically loving in an unlimited way. We love everything. It is our nature. Now, the thing about spiritual love is we give that from overflow. So for those who are adept with connecting with the source, the Supreme Soul, God, whatever you call that one, when the soul makes that connection, the current that comes to the soul is love. Pure love comes into the soul. And you can feel it as you get more used to the experience of the soul connecting with the divine. You feel that love coming in. When we're full, then what has to happen? So the current of love flows out of us naturally. We don't sit there and say, well, I think I'll love this one, I won't love that one, or I'll really love a lot right now. No, you're full. And so the vibrations of that fullness move out of you from overflow. Now, when you're living in that way, you'll find you are a magnet. People cannot resist you. They'll come up to you on the street. They'll hang out with you. If it's your desk at the office, you'll find them hanging around like bees around the queen bee. It is irresistible spiritual love. So you'll find people just totally attracted to you. They don't know what they want. They just want to hang out with you. They'll come sit next to you in a room, even if they don't know you. They'll pick up the vibe and they'll come sit by you. It's what everyone wants right now. Everyone is hungry for this kind of love. And that's one of the reasons that we meditate, is so that we can stay in that loving state, full of love. Now, in dying, when the soul's ready to leave, this is absolutely the way the soul wants to leave the body, in love, at peace. Whatever I did was what I did. I've forgiven myself for the mistakes I've made. I've forgiven others for any mistakes they made. My mind is at peace. My heart is clean. And I'm filled with love. So it's a continuum, isn't it? It's not, death for the soul that's leaving or that has left, it's a continuum. The soul slipped out of the body. And the soul went on to its next journey. Now, what do we do with our missing? Because it's fine to say, well, that soul went on to its next destination, but here I am with my big missing feeling. What do I do with that? Well, there's a couple of things. One is that a soul that has left a body, especially a soul that's left a body recently, is still aware of those who have been with him or her. Actually, all souls are hymns. For clarity, there aren't girl souls and boy souls. There's just souls, right? So him or her, whatever, however you knew them, but they are still able for a while, when they're still close to that body, they're still able to get a very close connection. And it may be for a long time, but we know that after the soul leaves, they can receive our love, they can receive our peace, they can receive our good wishes. And we need to know that they can also receive our sorrow. And this is why it's really important that we do what we can not to pull on the soul. So when we meditate for the soul, what we're doing is we're saying, safe travel. Peace be with you. Thank you. It was lovely. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was wonderful to have your company. And then you, filled with your spiritual love, you're sending these currents of love and peace. And as you do that, you allow that soul to make its passage in peace without longing and worrying and heaviness, right? Because souls are vibrational, right? We're energy. So the energy of sorrow is a certain vibration, and it travels to that soul. And the energy of love and peace and gratitude, those also are different vibrations, and those also travel to the soul. So the loving thing to do with the soul is to take the time to send those vibrations. And then, of course, we get the gratitude of who they were to us and how they enriched our lives. Whatever love they gave us, whatever gifts they gave us, we still have. And I'm not talking so much about the physical gifts. And we have those too, right? We've got the little mementos that sit on the piano or on the dresser. But what I'm talking about is if they were patient with us, we have that patience. If they were loving with us, we have that love. If they were creative and funny with us, we have the vestiges of that creativity and that fun. It's in our memory track. And the soul, the memory track travels with the soul. It's called the chit in Hindi. So in our subconscious, the gifts that soul gave us, the joy that they gave us, the love, the understanding, the patience, the appreciation, the laughs, all of that is in our memory track. So we say to them, thank you. Thank you for the way that you enriched my life. I am forever different because of you. I am forever more joyful because in my memory track, even though it won't be a conscious memory, there will be the lift of having known you. There will be that river of love that we had. There'll be that spark of how you saw me and how you appreciated me. Thank you for that. So let me pause and just check in with you. If you have any questions, thoughts, stories, experiences, anything you want to raise.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question. We use a lot words like love, forgiveness, God, but everybody in the end has his own understanding. What do you exactly mean by forgiveness? Or maybe more, my question should be, how can we forget? It's not about forgetting, definitely, because people think that to forgive is to forget. But what exactly forgiveness? How can that be attained?
That's such a good question. Well, I don't want to oversimplify it, right? So I just want to tell you what my understanding is, and then maybe others have something to share too. So this has to do with the heart. And if you're used to looking inside, the Hindi word for introverted is antarmukht. I turn my face inside. So when you meditate, you turn your face inside. Now you can sense where your heart is. Now you can sense what's going on in your mind, right? You can feel the mind is restless, or you can feel the heart's got a little disturbance, or you can feel your memories, right? All of that stuff that goes on inside that we don't notice as much when we're outwardly focused. So when we're plugged in outside and we're busy and active and all of that, we don't necessarily notice the inner landscape. But as you continue your meditation practice, you get more adept at noticing what's going on inside. And the main place that you can notice something going on is your heart. I mean, you can always notice your mind, right? You know if your mind is at peace. That's a pretty quick check, I think, for most of us. You know, if our mind is racing or whatever, we know, and we can usually quiet it down. But the heart is actually where we know the truth. The truth about how we're doing is in our heart.
Mhm.
You hear the term like lighthearted, right?
Mhm.
When we carry blame, it's like having a rock in your heart, right? I mean, everyone must have felt that. I know sometimes I've laid there thinking, how do I move this boulder off my heart that comes with sorrow, it comes with blame, it comes with a lot of things. I tried everything, and I find the only thing that really works for me is not thinking it through. Thinking did nothing. I find that thinking about it really just makes it bigger. The more I think about it, the more giant it gets, right? But if I can move to a state, and what's the word for this state? You might call it surrender or humility or quietness. It's a state where you're kind of saying, you know, I really want you to go away, you thing in my heart. I'm really finished with you. You've been sitting there too long, and I want to make light in my heart. Please go. And then you connect your heart to God. Now, this does require you have a relationship with God for this to work. And that can be elusive, right? Until you get adept in this. So let me just say that the most important thing that can happen to you in your meditation practice is first to become aware of yourself as a soul. That's the most important thing that can happen right there. Because from that place, everything can happen. That means I know I'm light. I know I sit here behind the eyes. I know that the soul holds the memory track, the awareness, the mind, the discernment, the heart, all of that lives in the soul. Once I'm aware of myself as a soul, and you know, if you've been ever seen a body once the soul is left, you know there's nothing there, right? You can feel immediately the thing you knew is gone. You know, it's just that it's all in the soul. Once you're aware of yourself as a soul, then you can connect with God. Now, some people are lucky enough to have had a spontaneous experience of God's presence. I've known a number of these people. And they knew right away what it was. You know, the room, it was like I felt a current. It was love. I suddenly was light. I went on, that hung around for a few days. I mean, I've heard this story over and over, and some of you may have had that experience too. Once you've had the experience of the soul connecting with God, then you realize that this can heal everything. It's an experience like no other secular experience. Better than Broadway, better than ice cream, better than better than all the things that we've consoled ourselves with. So to really get to forgiveness, I find you have to really move the thing from your heart with love, and then to the degree you're able, fill your heart with love. If you can manage it to be God's love, that's the best. And then hold that full place, because in a full heart, sorrow can't live there. Blame can't live in a full heart. If the heart's full of love, it's an empty heart that allows blame and guilt to live there. You know, it's got some emptiness in it. But when the heart is full of love, of spiritual love, especially of God's love, which is like God's love feels like it feels like a current or a waterfall or people have different descriptions of it, but it's like a flood of light and love that comes into your heart. And then you don't have to worry about forgiveness. What happens to us is when our minds, we have to make our mind behave, because our mind will go and get a memory that we don't want to think about, and it'll bring it in, and we'll think about it. And now we feel bad again, right? Over and over. So what you're doing with your meditation practice is you're getting strong enough that you can make your mind think about subtle things instead of the memory you don't want to think about. Right? Is that making sense?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else on this territory? Stephen, are you going to unmute and say something?
Hi, can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
You speak about attachment and non-attachment, and I totally understand. And as a guest, if I go to a hotel, well, yeah, I'm not totally attached to the hotel room as a guest. And now I'm a guest on this planet. So I'm not totally attached to many things. But if I have a partner, it's not exactly the same as an Airbnb, right? So therefore, if and when my partner leaves, certainly there's attachment. Now, maybe the word attachment is misused here, and of course we have to define it all. But when they leave, there is attachment. And how do I allow the person to leave and not be attached?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't want to act like it's easy, but it's sort of like I was just saying, do you say your name Susan? Susan? Or Susan? How do you say your name?
My name?
No, Susan, the one I just spoke with. How do you say it?
Sausen.
Sausen. So the same thing I was explaining to Sausen is very similar with attachment. So with the blame we were talking about, the mind keeps replaying the scene, right? It runs this little movie. And every time we watch the movie, we feel bad. And then we got to ask yourself, why does this mind keep replaying this movie? Because it makes me sad every time, but I can't stop watching the movie. It's like you drive by a car accident. How many car accidents have you seen? 300? And yet you slow down and you look at it as if you're going to see something new, right? It's the same with attachment. It's the same with this process I'm talking about with the memory coming in. With your meditation practice, one of the core capacities to develop is the full stop. In other words, when that movie starts playing, you stop the movie. You don't let it finish. You stop the movie and you bring in God's love. Or if you don't have a relationship with God that's strong enough, you bring in spiritual love to replace that movie. Now, the first dozen times you do this, the mind will just think you've made a mistake and it'll start it again. But if you keep putting a full stop there, the mind will stop. Now you have in front of you the thing you do want to think about and experience. It's not just thinking about, right? You're going for an experience. Instead of an experience of sorrow, instead of an experience of missing, you're bringing in the experience of spiritual love, God's presence. And that's, you're basking in that, because that makes the soul very happy. So this requires two capacities. One is the full stop, and one is the capacity to tap into, from soul consciousness to tap into God's love. When you can do that, you can be unattached, you can be completely forgiving, you can do apologies that are from your heart, all of it starts to move when you have those abilities. And they come with your meditation practice.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Sister Judy, may I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
The steps, what you described about living, they're so wonderful. And as I was listening and I'm just kind of checking, I know it makes us feel very light and living day to day in a balanced and joyful way. And I was thinking that if we are living in that state of mind, when we have to leave this body, it'll be okay. It won't be like a taxing thing. But how does it help to accept when others, the loved ones and the family members or friends, you hear about them, they left the body? So how does it tie up with that one?
Well, I suppose it depends on how they left and how you feel about how they left to some degree, right? Because it has different capacity from you is required. Because your question, Anita, is about how I experience other people's leaving, right? Okay, so on the simple level, if someone left at the end of a long, happy life, it was time for them to go. They'd done everything they wanted to do. They were at peace. Their family was there. What do you say? Blessings, right?
Yeah.
If it's something other than that, they went from COVID, they went too early, they went alone, whatever, then you're in a situation of doing two things: managing your own mind and serving that soul. So let's talk first about your mind. So your mind then has gone to sorrow, right? It's gone to missing. It's gone to regret. And your heart's then filled with worry and regret. Your mind has gone to missing. And so the same thing I was explaining to Stephen. So what you have to do, the reason you keep having the cycle of missing is you're replaying the scene in your mind, or you're replaying the thought, this one is gone, I'm not going to get to be with them anymore, etc. The missing is very strong, right? Now, I don't want to diminish the importance of your acknowledgement, anyone's acknowledgement of someone leaving. It's just our nature that we need to have our time to appreciate them, to feel sorrow, to grieve. I mean, that goes with the territory. But I think your question is more, how do we not get stuck there? Right? I think that's what you're saying. How do we not get stuck in that place?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay. So yes, you've done your respectful missing and grieving. You've done all the things you can do. So now, again, when that movie starts to play and the tragic part plays about whatever's making you feel sad, that's where you need to develop this ability for this full stop, right? So you stop that movie, you replace it with the love. Now that's your mind, but the other part is serving that soul. And as I was saying, the service to some soul that has left is really important service. And our sorrow does not serve them. And that's often what happens at the point of departure, right? Our missing doesn't serve them. So once you're able to get a hold of your own mind and heart, which is the first step. So now you've calmed your mind down, you've filled it with love. Every time it runs and gets the memory, you stop it. You don't let it go. You make it stay with love. Now you're going to serve that soul. So, in order to serve that soul, you have to fill yourself with complete happiness. I know it sounds really hard, but actually, when you start to think of that one with love, with happiness, with peace, and now you are sending that. And you're sending it with all the force that you previously were using for your sorrow. And you're saying, may peace be with you. Because the soul has its little journey in between the next life, right?
Yeah.
May you go in peace. May you go with complete love. May you be in joy. Thank you. All of those currents, each of those thoughts and feelings has its own current. So you're creating a field around the soul, right? You could call it an ocean, but it's not water, it's light. So you're creating that field around the soul and you're sending them love and peace. This is what angels do. This is the work of angels, right? And we can behave like angels because when we work as souls, we're working with light. And that's what angels do. They work with light, right?
Thank you. It's helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. We've got a few more minutes. Anyone have anything else, or shall we do a little meditation
There is a
together?
question, Sister Judy, in the chat.
Okay.
The question reads like this: if you are a judge in a court, a society, how does that judge give love equally to all? I'm not sure.
Not sure I understand it. How
I mean,
does the judge give love equally to all?
maybe I can request the person to open the mic and probably
You want to just
explain.
explain your question?
Thank you. What I mean is, you said no matter what the other person is in terms of the background, maybe the worst enemy, a murderer or anything, you should be able to give love equally to all. But a judge who is deciding to punish or give the judgment, how does his mind feel at the time of the judgment, equality of love? How could you do that? I mean, he has some that partiality or judgment that itself carries a burden of deciding. How could he show love to everybody?
Are you asking about an actual judge in a secular setting? Is that your question?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Well, I would just say that, people have to do, I suppose, their jobs. And so he would have to pass the judgment in his job. But that's different from love, no? In other words, you can pass a judgment and still have love.
How do you do that?
Well, we should have started with this question because it's a little towards the end. But I would say,
Maybe just one sentence. The judge will judge the action of the person.
That's
and
nice.
That's the difference.
That's nice. Yeah, your love, love has to do with you. Spiritual love has to do with you, not with the object out there. When we are spiritually loving, we are just an outpouring. Those are the people we call saints, right? When we think of Mother Teresa, or we think of the Dalai Lama, or we think of Dottie Janke if we're BKs, or we think of Saint Francis. I mean, all of these saints. That's why we decided they were remarkable, is they were this amazing fountains of forgiveness and love. And I would just say that that's the task of this time. The world needs our love. The world needs us to be angels at this time. The world needs us to be saints. So I think we have to do the best we can. That means knowing who we are. That means knowing that we are light. It means knowing who God is, because he's the source of love, so that we can connect there, and treating our life as service, because the world's in a lot of pain right now. There is no one I know who isn't either suffering themselves or in close touch with people who are suffering. So I would say to everyone, in terms of your meditation practice, this is our task. And it's sort of whether you're living or you're helping someone go or you're going yourself, it's really about living with so much love and peace and patience and kindness and mercy that people are attracted to you because you are the soft place to land, that you are the salve for their pain. And that's why, I mean, you certainly wouldn't be sitting here on a Zoom or YouTube or whatever call on a whatever night this is, Thursday night, if you weren't about your spiritual life. You'd be off shopping or something, right? I mean, this is important to you. And I would say the reason that it's important to you is because you feel the call of the time. You feel that time is calling for you to do something. And this is a tangible way for you to do something, to become loving in that way, become peaceful in that way, become light. All right, everyone, we are up against the edge of our time and I have somewhere I have to go. Do you want to take a minute or two in silence together? It's been lovely to be with you all tonight. Let's just take a minute in silence together. Thank you. Have a lovely evening. Om Shanti.